So, need to figure out the clicker. So do you remember our growthly.io team from the intro video yesterday? I wanted to show you a few of the email capture tactics that they came up with, because they came off the screen pretty quickly there, so you might not have actually seen them. So this is one of the first pop-ups there. You are not a lead, we are. Give us your email and we'll lead. So pretty clever, doesn't really give you any reason to actually fill this out, and not really clear about what's going to happen if you do. Next one here, so the slow play here. Are you ready for disruptive growth? We believe in short forms that lead into longer forms. So this is actually 2 fields that goes to 33 fields, including, in what town was your neighbor born, as one of the security questions. So then we have this exit pop-up, leaving so soon, give us your email and we'll send you a free bag of cash. Except it actually gets paid out in imaginary growth coins that actually don't get launched until the year 2020. Now, these are obviously fictional exaggerations, right? Like, these are just, just for a little bit of fun. But the funny thing is about these is they're actually not that far-fetched. So if you've seen a few websites, you've probably seen something pretty similar to this in the real world. And also, you've probably been familiar with the sort of process that generates ideas like this. So the sort of design by committee, you have like the yes man and the girl that knows lots of marketing terms and that sort of thing. And if you had to optimize something like this, it's actually pretty easy, honestly. Like, you get rid of the deception, you get rid of like the bait and switch, and increase the clarity a little bit, and it's not going to be that difficult. But if you're in an agency setting, or if you're even in an in-house optimizer, you're going to be dealing with starting points that are a little bit more challenging than this, because most people already know not to launch something like this. So I'll show you what I mean here. So this is Click and Grow, client of ours. They sell smart gardens. They combine with little plant pods. You can grow 45 different varieties of different fruits, herbs, vegetables right on your countertop. So they run a contest where once a week they give away one of these smart gardens. So this is a welcome pop-up that shows up when you get to the site, gives you a little bit of information about the contest, and then tries to get you to sign up for it. So it's not too bad, right? There's nothing overly deceptive about this. It's not being super sneaky or anything. It's pretty straightforward. You can kind of get the idea. But can we optimize it? Well, yeah, that's our job. So of course we're going to optimize it. So what could we change here? There's a few things we could change, like the copy, for example. I'm not sure how compelling food matters is. I think everybody that is alive knows the importance of food. So we could tweak the copy there. Maybe we can do something with the form fields. Maybe we can do something with the design. So we decided to change a few things about this because we wanted to have a pretty high impact experiment. So this is variant 1. We increased the clarity. We wanted to make it super clear that what you're entering for is a free smart garden, right? We're giving away one every week, and then there's a little bit of transactional copy here about, you want to be upfront about the fact that they're signing up for your newsletter. It's not like just for the contest, so they're not going to be surprised when you email them later. We decided to increase the motivation a little bit, so the copy helps with this, and just adding an image of what they're actually winning, rather than just making them imagine it in their heads. We also reduced the friction. So instead of 2 form fields, we talked to the client and they said the name field was not super important. So we just trimmed that down to just email address. Also, the button copy helps with motivation a little bit. I want to win instead of like, yes, sign me up. And then also, the design is obviously substantially different than what we started with here. So this, the reason for changing the design was to get the pop-up to be more on brand, more consistent with the design of the rest of the website, and also consistent with what we found in the qualitative research. So more on that a little bit later. So we also decided to run another variant here and introduce the element of urgency. So we have a little countdown timer here just to give them a little bit of a nudge into making a decision rather than just canceling out right away or hanging around and just not deciding. So this is the experiment we ran, number 1 versus number 2. And I'll show you the results. All right, nailed it, right? 270% increase for version 1, 330% increase for version 2 with the timer. So obviously the client's going to be totally stoked about this. We're all happy, totally awesome. But just in case, let's look at some other metrics, and in case there's some other good news that we can tell the client about, right? Oh, crap. So transactions are down by 3 to 3.5%. Average order value for V1 was flat, but for version 2 with the timer, it went down 15%. So needless to say, client was actually not happy about this at all. And it kind of seems like this whole optimizing for email signups thing is a little more complicated than we originally thought. So we have a test here that seemed successful on the surface, and then we just looked into a couple more metrics, and it turned out that this test is not successful at all. This is not something that we should implement. So we're going to drill a little bit deeper into this topic. I'll show you what we actually did for this test in particular, but first I'm going to start out with why should we even focus on email signups in the first place, especially in this day and age, how you can actually stack the odds in your favor in your optimization program by using conversion research. Like I said, we'll revisit that contest pop-up, show you a few examples of things other than e-commerce pop-ups, and then a couple of key takeaways and resources. And basically what I'm showing you is actual tests that we've run at CXL agency, so get ready. Okay, so why should we focus on email capture in the first place? Sorry, weird slide issue there. Anyway, no worries. So so basically, why should we even focus on email signups? Are email pop-ups even still relevant in this day and age? Well, yes, definitely they are. And I would say that all you need to do to figure this out in your case is to have a look at the data, first of all. Consider the value of building a relationship with your client, or the customer, the website customer. And then also, think about your overall testing strategy. Yeah, sorry, weird slide issue. Okay, so when I'm talking about looking at the data, I'm specifically talking about, one, looking at the conversion rates by traffic source, and then a couple of multi-channel funnel things you can look at in GA that will tell you the time lag to conversion and the path length to conversion. So email traffic compared to other traffic sources. So I look at a lot of analytics accounts, and this is very typical of what I see when I look at them. So if you look at email traffic coming in here from their list, conversion rate 11.26%. So this is like 2 to 4 times the conversion rate of the other traffic sources. So obviously it's pretty clear that this is a channel that you should focus some efforts on because you can have pretty good success here. So time lag and path length, so these are multi-channel funnel reports in Google Analytics. So these actually start with the conversion, and then they work backwards from that. So this will tell you how many days did it take before they actually converted from when the user first arrived, and how many touch points did it take. So what we're seeing here is around 2/3 of the conversions are actually happening on the first day, and then it tapers off pretty quickly from there. And then over here, the number of interactions. So even though 2/3 are converting on the first day, only like less than half of them are actually converting on the first touch point. Now, this is still a lot less than the 7 touch points to conversion that they mentioned in the intro video, but it still shows you that you need to do a little bit of work to get the visitor to come back to your website. So when it comes to building a relationship with your customer, you're all pretty familiar with this funnel model. There's lots of other ones, but basically just by the nature of email itself, you're already getting past from the awareness stage to at least into consideration and conversion. So if you've got their email, and then you sent them an email, and then they come back to your website, they already know who you are, and they're getting that much closer to conversion. And obviously, email marketing is even, can even be more powerful for even down funnel stuff like retention and engagement in the longer term. Okay, so when it comes to your testing strategy, so how can email signups and pop-ups and that sort of thing fit in with this? Well, one consideration is that they actually have a separate KPI. So if you're running a lot of different tests elsewhere in your funnel based on conversions or maybe on, cart ads and that sort of thing, they have their own metrics. But if you're running for email capture, then the primary metric of your test, like we saw, would be the email signups themselves. Now, of course, you want to keep an eye on the other ones, like the stuff that's important to the business as well. But basically what this means is you can run these tests sort of independently, and they're not likely to really conflict with one another. Also, if you have fairly low traffic on your website, like maybe you actually don't have enough transactions to actually get statistical significance on your tests, if you can get a decent enough conversion rate with your email capture, you may be able to run successful tests there and actually get the statistical significance that you need. The other sort of consideration is testing as learning. So we're not always just testing to win. We're also testing to learn different things about what's important to customers, what sort of messaging is going to work. So when it comes to testing on an email pop-up, say you've done a round of conversion research with qualitative stuff like the stuff that Joanna Weeb talked about, like getting voice of customer data, and you come up with a couple of different options for messaging you might want to try out. This can be another channel to try out that messaging without, necessarily porting that over to the rest of the website. Okay, so research. So this is the Research Excel model. You're probably familiar with this already, or many of you will be. This is the model that we teach at the CXL Institute, and this is the same framework that we use at the CXL agency to run actual optimization projects. So this is a really good balance of quantitative versus qualitative research. So it always starts out with heuristic analysis. So that's our expertise-based analysis of the website, page by page. And you apply like a conversion framework. So applying different conversion principles, there's lots of them that you can try. Some are more involved than others, but typically, the one that we use is looking for problems with clarity, problems with too much friction, issues with not enough motivation, sources of distraction, that sort of thing. And that sort of forms the backbone of our analysis. So this is kind of the first pass, is looking at and find the issues that we actually see. And then we use the rest of these data points to cross-correlate the initial findings. So we'll look at heat maps, scroll maps. We do a deep dive into like conversion-focused analytics. So getting a good idea of on-site behavior and what users are currently doing. And then, of course, analytics can only tell you what is happening. It can't really fill in the rest of the picture of the why of it. So that's why you always pair this with qualitative research as well. So we'll send out customer surveys, do rounds of user testing, and then also look at things like session recordings. Now you might be thinking, is this kind of overkill? Like this seems, pretty comprehensive. And I would say, no, it's definitely not, because you don't know, like if you just wanted to pick and choose a couple of these things, you don't know where the insights are going to come from in advance. Right? They can come from anywhere, and it's not until you actually go through some of these processes and the multiple data points that you can start to develop empathy for the customer, a good understanding of even the site structure, how people are moving through it, and then it's when you bring all these together where you really find like the juiciest insights. And the other thing is, if you don't correlate with multiple data points, you don't have any very good basis for prioritizing your results. So like, how are you going to know which insight to move on if you don't go through some sort of prioritization process that brings all of this stuff together? Speaking of prioritization, this is the framework we use at CXL. It's called the PXL model. I'm not going to get too deep into this now, but basically this is similar to other prioritization frameworks you might be familiar with, like PI or ICE. But this is designed to take the subjectivity out of it and shift into a more objective look at how to prioritize this stuff. So the first fields are things that have to do with the impact that that particular test concept might have, and then the confidence that you can have that this is actually a real issue, like not just someone's opinion or not just something that was kind of some random thing that came up, but if it's sort of supported by different data points, then that gives you more confidence that this is something you should move on. And then, of course, the ease of implementation. So like Lucas was saying, sometimes you can have a test that takes 5 minutes of development time and can have a huge impact, and that should probably shift the weight in your favor a little bit on whether that's something you should move on first. Okay, so how can you actually just apply this Research Excel model to optimizing for email signups? So specifically, heuristic analysis is sort of what we saw in that first example, where we looked at things that weren't super clear, ways we could increase motivation, reduce the friction, that sort of thing. Like scroll tracking and heat maps, this will give you an idea of whether the element that you're thinking of optimizing, like say it's an email sign-up form that's at the bottom of the page, if you look at scroll tracking, you might see that only 15% of people are even seeing that. So that should tell you should probably shift to different tactics, which is something that's going to be more visible and that more people are actually going to interact with. The analytics conversion audit, obviously that gives you a good insight into what people are currently doing on the site as sort of a baseline for what you want to try and change. And then, of course, qualitative research. So we've had a couple great talks on this topic already from like Ellis and Carrie and Joanna. And I can't stress enough how important qualitative research is to optimization. So when it comes to Click and Grow, we ran a customer survey We take a very similar approach to what else described, where we stick to non-leading questions, open-ended, so we want to get in their own words what they're thinking, what's important to them. In this case, we did 6 questions in total, but these are the 2 questions that applied most to that email pop-up that you saw. So what made you choose Click and Grow over similar products? And what came up pretty consistently as the top item was the design of the product itself. So they wanted it to, they liked that it was stylish and compact, could fit on their countertop, and didn't look too out of place. It didn't look like you just put a garden on your countertop or anything. And so what matters most to you when buying indoor garden solutions, kind of the same thing, the quality of the product itself, and then again, product design, so stylish, compact, that sort of thing. Now, before I get into more test examples, I just want to mention briefly that in order to get permission to show you our client's data, one of the conditions was they didn't want me to show any absolute numbers. So I'm only able to show you relative uplifts, and I would really prefer to be able to show you like the actual number of users that were in the test and the number of conversions. So I just wanted to speak really briefly about the test planning rules that we use internally and that you should definitely include in your optimization program. So first, you need an appropriate level of statistical significance. So typically, we use 95% for this. But this isn't enough in itself. You can't just run a test until you reach significance. That's called p-hacking. It's bad practice. Don't do that. You need to make sure you have adequate sample size. You need to make sure that the sample that you're testing is actually representative of the overall population and not just, not just some like small little corner of your traffic that happened to have a little spike. And then you need additional stopping rules like a minimum number of business cycles. So typically, this will be a number of weeks. So we usually use 2 weeks as a minimum. And this is pretty applicable for e-commerce or most, a lot of lead gen, like a lot of sites that'll have sort of a weekly cycle to the traffic. But there is some cases like, say, really high dollar B2B, where the sales cycle is a lot longer. Like the person who's even browsing the site might not even be the one making the decision. So sometimes you might need to stretch this out a little bit longer. Okay, so back to the Click and Grow contest that we started with there. So think about this a little bit. Imagine you walk into Best Buy, right? You're thinking of buying some small appliance, and then the salesman comes up to you and says, actually, don't buy that right now. We're going to run a contest next week, and you can actually win one, right? So you actually might be disincentivized from going ahead with your original purchase. You're like, well, maybe I'll just wait 1 week, see if I win the contest. And if I don't, maybe I'll come back. And then maybe you do, maybe you don't. Maybe you go to another store, maybe you forget about it altogether, right? So this sort of doesn't make a lot of sense. Like, you don't really want to discourage the user from doing the thing that they came to your website to do. So we decided to change this up a bit with a completely different offer. So, $5 welcome offer as soon as they get there. So they can get $5 off their first Smart Garden purchase. These things are about $100, so this is a pretty small discount. You're not having to like go 30% or 50% off or anything like that. And then if they've declined that offer, and then they browsed around the site for a while and they're about to leave, we give them an incremental, oh, I see. This is my old slide deck. This is supposed to be revised. Anyway, so a bit of a different offer here. The design and that sort of thing was pretty similar to the old one because we thought that those are some pretty good changes to make. I was going to go into the Stanford marshmallow experiment, but it sort of didn't make sense. But since it's on the screen, I'll explain it a bit. So they did this experiment back in the 60s where they would offer kids either 1 marshmallow right now, or if they could wait 15 minutes, they would get 2 marshmallows. And they took this in a lot of different directions. There's a lot of follow-up experiments to this. And they tried to relate it to like how they would succeed in the future at various things. And that's the part where it's kind of controversial. But the part that isn't controversial is that very few people actually were able to, it was like 1/3 of people are actually able to even just wait 15 minutes to get double the incentive. So anyway, moving on. Okay, so this is the test we ran. That's the control. These are the 2 variations. And in this case, also pretty good lift in email signup. So we got 327% on desktop, 114% on mobile. And of course, we wanted to have a look at those e-commerce metrics to make sure we didn't tank them again. So let's have a look at those. Okay, a little bit better, hey? So we got 16% lift in transactions on desktop and about 19% on mobile. AOV had a nice lift on desktop, 3.5%. A little bit of a drop on mobile. But it still worked out to be about 18% lift in revenue per user for mobile and 22% for desktop. So, much better. What can we learn from this? So, the small discount can actually increase the average order value. So that's kind of surprising. Like, it's not surprising that giving a discount will increase the conversion rate. That's pretty self-evident. But basically what happened in this case, the only way that AOV could increase is that people are willing to buy more plant pods. Because that's the only product they have. There's just either the smart garden or the plant pods. So it turned out that giving a bit of a discount made them not only more likely to purchase, but they wanted to shop around a bit more and maybe spend some of the money they had originally been planning to spend. The other takeaway here is to align the offer with the business goals. So you don't want to actually discourage people from actually completing their purchase. You want to do something that will actually encourage them to. So we'll look at another example of a similar sort of test that we ran. In this case, it's for bullymax.com. So they sell nutritional supplements for dogs. So if you want to get your dog looking super ripped, go to BullyMax. In this case, this pop-up didn't exist first. So they had just an email capture elsewhere on the site, and we decided to add this. So this is a new thing. It's a $5 discount right away. And the interesting thing here is you actually don't even need to enter your email to get the discount. So they just give you the coupon code right away, and then what you're signing up for with the email is additional offers, like later they're going to send you maybe some other discounts and that sort of thing. So the results of this one, email signups up almost 100%, so a really nice boost there. And then the purchases were up almost 2%, but there's low significance on that result, so take that with a grain of salt. So the takeaway here is more, we were able to increase the email signups with at least not having a negative impact on the e-commerce metrics. So you might be wondering, does this mean that contests are a bad idea? Like, contests are actually pretty common. People run them all the time, right? So it seems like I'm saying, contests are going to tank your e-commerce metrics, so go with a welcome offer instead. Well, no, not really. So I'll show you another example. Native deodorant. So they sell natural deodorant that isn't a chemistry experiment. Very popular product. People arrive at this website with really high motivation. They have really effective marketing. So by the time people get here, they're pretty already primed. They usually already know what the product is, and they're pretty much ready to buy. They were running a very similar sort of contest where instead of just giving away one of the product, they give away a 12-month supply of it. So pretty similar to Click and Grow. This is what we decided to do. So variant 1, similar approach. We improved the clarity. The original wording, it sort of implied that maybe you're just winning a subscription to the newsletter or something. Like, it was a bit of a clarity issue there. So we wanted to just make it super clear you're winning 12 months of the native deodorant itself. We decided to increase the visual hierarchy. Another mistake on this slide, just ignore that $3 off thing there. It actually did say, like, what does it say on this one? Enter the contest. So version 1, we decided to go with the same urgency, so a little bit of a countdown timer there. And then the contrast of the button was changed. So the original button sort of had a tendency to blend in with the rest of the site. It was like that blue color, not quite as noticeable. So we decided to change it to a contrasting color just to make it a little bit more visible, improve the visual hierarchy there. So for variant 2, we decided to test a different motivational trigger. So instead of going with urgency, we decided to go with more of a trust angle. So this is the native guarantee badge that we developed mostly to use in checkout. So just to give a little bit of reassurance that this product comes with a guarantee and that there's free shipping and free returns. So specifically, we wanted to test 2 different motivational triggers on this. And this is the test that we ran. So there's the original, those are the 2 variants. And then the results for this, also pretty good. So not quite as impressive as the several 100% in the Click and Grow example, but a 44% increase on a list like this. They have pretty good volume, so they're actually pretty excited about this. Almost 30% on mobile. And in both of these cases, the e-commerce metrics were actually just even. So there's like about a 0.25% discount, but nothing too interesting there. So learnings from this is that, in this case, for this situation, urgency worked better than the branded guarantee. The branded guarantee is still pretty good, though. Like, that's definitely an acceptable lift, and maybe that's the direction you would want to go to, depending on what your priorities are. We can actually increase the email signups without affecting the e-commerce conversions. And of course, context is important. So if it's something like a one-time purchase like a smart garden, most of the time, you're probably going to buy one of these. Maybe you'll buy another one. Maybe if you really like it, you're going to buy one for your mom like months later or something like that. But deodorant is something you buy over and over again. And it's only $12, so there's not really a big deal if you spend $12 and then you still win the contest and get a year's supply. And if you like it, you'll probably keep buying it after that as well. So definitely, important to consider the context, because just the nature of the product can have some pretty big changes, and even if you're using the exact same tactics. Okay, so you're probably wondering, am I just talking about email pop-ups this whole talk? No, don't worry. I'm going to show you a couple of different tactics you can use. I'm going to get through these pretty quickly. So rule.me, it's content about the keto diet. So in these updated slides that you'll get later, I promise, we actually do have a picture of the control. But basically what we changed is adding these lead magnets, so letting them know that they get recipes, motivational success stories, and expert guidance. We improved the visual hierarchy. The other one kind of was bland and just kind of blended in. And these are both right sidebar placements. So there's no pop-ups involved with these. It's just pretty typical layout for content where you just have the CTA on the sidebar there. So this one resulted in pretty impressive lifts. So 663% for variant 1, 900% for variant 2. And the difference is literally just in the copy that you see at the top there. So it's achieve your weight loss goals versus start losing weight. So that one was clearly more compelling. Another follow-up test that we did for this was they wanted to change the layout. Instead of having the right sidebar, we got rid of the sidebar completely, and then decided to go with the scroll trigger box that comes once you get to a certain point in the content. This box slides in. The messaging is pretty much the same. And the result of this one, an additional 520% increase for variant 1. And then we also ran a green one. I don't really know why they were, there's not a lot of difference in contrast there, but there's not a huge difference in the results either, but almost 500% for the green one. Okay, so before I wrap up, I'm going to show you a series of experiments we ran for CXL Institute. Now, these weren't A/B tests. This is actually just a sequence of things that we tried out, so different kind of like offers and designs and tools and that sort of thing. So this is a starting point. It was a sumo.com pop-up, and it had an email conversion rate of 0.56%, so pretty low. Wanted to improve on this. Here's what we did next. We switched to Unbounce. Modified the offer, so instead of just kind of a generic ebook, it's a very specific one, master the essentials of conversion optimization, and this managed to bump the conversion rate up to 0.72%. This was yet another offer, so instead of just an ebook, it's actually getting access to one of our courses on optimization, and this bumped up the conversion rate a little bit more to 0.77%. So same offer, trying it out in the right sidebar. They wanted to try that out, and sort of similar to what we saw with the rule.me example. This didn't perform as well as the other placements, right? So it brought the conversion rate down to 0.6%. And in this case, we decided to switch up to a different tool. So instead of Unbounce, we switched to Exit Intel. It has slightly different targeting rules and a little bit of different internal logic. And this was a pretty good win, so this bumped on desktop up to 1.16 and mobile 2.4%. So we're already starting to get pretty good compared to that original 0.56. And then the next one was just thinking outside the box completely. So instead of just kind of more standard lead magnet type of stuff, this is the quiz funnel. So you get to answer a bunch of questions about conversion optimization and figure out how good of an optimizer are you. And the average conversion rate for this was 2.3%. So once again, we're getting to like 4 times as much as the original conversion rate just by tweaking, different things, different tactics, different tools, different offers, different designs. And it was pretty successful. All right, so wrapping up here, what can we learn from all this? Well, it's important to align your strategy with what's important to the business. So, we know not to focus on vanity metrics for the most part. But even, you need to think a little bit outside of just even the central metric to what your test is. So, keep an eye on other metrics. Keep in mind statistical significance because, there is a lot of differences. You're going to need more sample size in order to look at things like revenue compared to things like conversions. But, have a look anyway. Make sure that you're looking downstream and not like tanking other metrics that are important to the business. Try out different tactics, different tools, different offers, and different designs. And like you saw in the case of the native example, try out different motivational triggers, try out different hypotheses. Don't just try out 2 different colors for no different reason. And most importantly, do your research. So this is the best way to get high impact tests, is by doing very thorough conversion research, use solid conversion principles, apply a good framework of heuristics, and do your due diligence. And this is the best way to get tests that are going to keep your clients happy or your management happy and get the results that you're looking for. OK, that's all. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you. Thanks, Ryan. So we don't have time for questions. So all of these questions that you've got up behind me here, feel free to find Ryan during the break. Everybody, come back here right at 11:30 for Nina Bayati's talk from ClassPass. Thank you, Ryan.
Thanks.